me. And good morning from Melbourne, Australia. It's my great pleasure to be here with you today. I'm going to also share a screen. What I'm going to do is have some slides. I'm going to cut them short because I think we need a little bit more time for some of the other speakers as well. But as per Raphael, the resources will all be available to you online so you can access them at another time. So just bear with me for 1 minute. So this morning I wanted to talk to you about the APEC quality assurance of online learning toolkit. This was a resource. The presentation this morning will focus on the origin, structure and benefits of the toolkit and the principles and good practice for each of the toolkit domains with a focus on student engagement. I just wanted to start with some of the common misperceptions about online learning, which I think are held everywhere. The first one is that the teacher does not play an active role in the online learning and teaching process, that online lectures are the same as online learning, that online learning is not as rigorous as face-to-face learning, that cheating is easier in an online learning environment, and online delivery is cheaper than face-to-face delivery. Now, obviously, I consider these to be misperceptions, and it's my role today to try and prove to you that is correct. And I will do that by virtue of the toolkit and what it's saying. So just starting with the origin of the toolkit. The toolkit was developed in response to the growth of online and blended higher education in APEC economies prior to COVID. So it was 2016-17. It was developed, and I think this is very important, in collaboration with government, quality assurance agencies and higher education institutions from 13 APEC economies, including Latin America. The toolkit is informed by research. It is a very practical toolkit. It is made up of 9 domains, and each of these domains is supported by an underlining principle, research findings, guiding questions for quality assurance agencies and institutions, and examples of the type of evidence required to demonstrate that quality is being delivered. So it is a very practical guide for people who are coming to online education, both as beginners and as experienced practitioners. The structure of the APEC toolkit, it's split into 3 parts. The first one is innovative culture, the second is student engagement, and the third part is student achievement. And under each of those 3 headings are 3 specific domains. I'm going to focus this morning on the student engagement part. Before I go into student engagement, I just want to say that to give you examples of how some of the other APEC economies have started to use the toolkit. Since its release, some countries have translated the toolkit into their language and distributed it to their quality agencies and education institutions. Some have mapped it to their existing regulatory or quality assurance requirements, and others have drawn on it to draft new online quality assurance requirements. The benefit of the toolkit, and this is what the APEC goal is, that if adopted by a range of countries, it can facilitate the transmigration of students between countries, as a single framework will then provide evidence of academic achievement in each country. I want to just make a separate point at this stage. Although we're talking about quality assurance of online learning, in Australia, and TEXA is the regulatory and quality assurance body, they do not have a separate quality assurance framework for online. And when I say online, I'm referring to online and blended. They do not have a separate quality assurance framework for online education. There is one quality assurance framework, and that is for all types of delivery, whether it is face-to-face or blended or online. However, the principles that underpin online education, quality in online education, are in most cases the same as those that underpin face-to-face education. So the toolkit, the first area that the toolkit covers is innovative culture. And under that, it covers leadership and management, staffing and professional development, and review and improvement. And they will all be very familiar areas to those of you involved in quality assurance. I'm not going to go through the particular principles. These are all contained in the document. I just wanted to briefly give you an idea of what goes into this area. So student achievement includes curriculum design, assessment and integrity, and learning outcomes. A lot of the principles that underpin the toolkit, you'll see they are almost identical to face-to-face learning. However, there is a strong emphasis on interactive learning. Oh, don't know why that's not showing up. The point I wanted to spend a bit more time talking about this morning was student engagement. And in the toolkit, there are 3 specific domains that relate to student engagement: resources, student information and support, and student experience. I think this is a really important point, that in order to be seen as a viable mode of delivery and one that is worthy of investment by governments, universities, and students, importantly, online learning needs to be considered of similar quality to traditional face-to-face learning. And the reason I've highlighted "and students" is that if we're talking about student engagement, the way that we will get them engaged is by making sure they are feeling that they are getting a quality learning experience, and it's not at all compromised because it is online. There's another point to that as well, and that's got to do with what Raphael was talking about, academic integrity. Students will feel engaged with online learning if they feel that they are being marked fairly, and that those who are doing their and that they are being recognised for giving original work, and that students who are not engaged with original work and who are cheating are also being detected by the online system. So how do we develop a strong virtual learning community? A quality online course needs to build and support a strong virtual learning community through the design of the course. So the design of the course is key. I like to think of the fact that an online learning environment should replicate a university or an institution, and that there should be opportunities for the same level of engagement that students have if they were physically present on a campus in an online environment. And I just pause to say, I recognise that what I'm talking about here is a mature online system, and all throughout the world, and very much in Australia, the last 12 months have seen a lot of people have to become expert very quickly in online. So we understand, or it should be appreciated, that this is something that we need to build quality in, and that it's not going to happen overnight. The relationship between a student and teacher in an online learning environment is particularly important. And I think many people would argue that it is more important, that relationship in an online environment, than it is almost in a face-to-face environment. Student engagement is key. Interactivity is key to human learning, rather than information processing focused solely on the internal mental processes of the student. Students will feel confident and engaged in the learning experience if there is a sense of care, community, and belonging that is created by the teacher and the university. So students disappear in an online environment when they don't feel that anybody is going to notice that they're not there. The teacher is responsive to the learning needs of the students, and in an online environment that's particularly challenging because it's it requires some effort to try and find out what the learning needs are. The design of the course must be logical, interactive, and engaging. There should be reliable and timely access to the e-learning system, and reflecting what I said before, institutions must demonstrate steps taken to ensure academic integrity so that students do not feel that those students who are not doing authentic work are not being detected. This is something that people will be very familiar with, the 3 types of interaction that are important, but this just allocates different types of learning activities to these 3 types of interaction. The interactions that are important for an online learning experience and in class are the learner-teacher interaction, learner-peer interaction, the learner interacting with their peers, and the learner-content interaction, how they interact with the content. You will see there under the learner-teacher interaction that televised lectures, tutorials, and workshops are there, but it really occupies a very small part of the learner-teacher interaction. In the same way that review of recorded lectures under the learner content interaction is only one of many ways that the learner can engage and should engage with the content. Going back directly to the toolkit, under the area of student engagement, the key principle related to resources is that the technical and digital infrastructure is sufficiently resourced to enable accessible, reliable, and compatible provision of online education for all students, regardless of location. I'm sorry, I have a problem here with my slides, so I'm going to just move on to the student experience. Under good practice for student experience, activities for interaction are embedded in the course design. Each student has access to other students' photos, names, and contact details. Digital platforms are designed to distinguish between academic and more socially oriented aspects of the student experience, and regular updates and communication is sent and received between the university and online students. I've gone through this very quickly in the interests of allowing the other participants, panelists, to have some time to speak, but I just wanted to go back to those key misperceptions at the beginning and turn them on their head, and to say that in online learning, as I said very briefly in this presentation, the teacher plays an active role in the online learning and teaching process, and perhaps it is more important that the teacher is present in the process than in face-to-face learning. Online lectures only constitute one small part of the online learning experience. I appreciate the fact that when we have to move to online learning, that's one of the easiest things that we can give students, but it must not be considered the end of the online learning experience. Online learning should be as rigorous as face-to-face learning, and the learning outcomes must be the same or equivalent as if face-to-face. With regard to academic integrity, I think it's sort of universal that cheating will happen everywhere and at every time and every opportunity, but it can be minimised in an online learning environment through good curriculum and assessment design, and specifically through continuous assessment that allows the teacher to get a very good sense of what the aptitude and the voice of the student is, so that they can detect whether it's genuine work or not. And this is more directed towards the heads of universities, that online delivery is not cheaper than face-to-face delivery. Good online delivery costs money, and it has to be budgeted for in the same way that face-to-face delivery is. So I understand it during COVID that most people have moved on to it as necessity, but it must never be seen as something that is cheap compared to face-to-face. It requires the same investment as face-to-face learning. I've gone through that very quickly, Maria Teresa, and I just thought that I would leave it there. I'm sorry, some of my slides, the font disappeared, but they will appear again in the version that everyone gets. But that is a very, very quick run through this document, which is the toolkit. And the toolkit, you'll have it available through the resources. But I guess one of the first steps that could happen, if it hasn't already happened, is that it could be translated into Spanish. And then it's available as a resource to a very wide group of people. I'll leave it there for the moment, Maria Therese.